For our ASL interpreters, we're going live.
Welcome everyone, and welcome to the October 11th meeting of the Accessibility Advisory Committee. Couple of things before we actually get started. We have a new microphone system for our ASL interpreters. We have two ASL interpreters with us today online. One is Tyler and one is Christy. And as you know, we had some difficulty last time, so we're trying a slightly different system this time. It would be very helpful if people spoke their name when they started to speak, and also minimize any background noise. We've been experimenting with this a bit, and it's still not, we're still not 100% yet. So I'm going to ask that not to have any side conversations going on. If you want to speak, that's fine, and we'll just follow regular protocol. I think for everybody's benefit, it would be helpful if we could go around the table once. We do have a couple of people joining us from home or from their office, depending. Derek LaValle is joining us from home today. Steve Zupa is in his office. Justin is in some place that has a very nice background. Jordan, sorry. Salvador is also joining us from his office today. And Annika is a student interpreter who's joining Tyler and Christy today. And I see Peter Tenazzo, the city's planning director, has just joined us. So if we could just go around the table, Sandra, can I get you to start?
Sure. Good afternoon. It's Sandra Hollingsworth, and I'm part of City Council. Always happy to be here.
I'm Carrie Tuckett. I'm a deafblind support worker from Canadian Hearing Services.
Lisa Bezzo-Allen, City Councilor.
François Couture, coordinator.
Didn't catch yours.
Oh,
Yeah, sorry, if we could go back, I think it was Lisa, it cut out.
Sure,
Sorry
yeah.
there.
Lisa Bezzo-Allen, City Council.
François Couture, Building Division. Don McConnell, recently retired and currently the chair of the Accessibility Committee.
Diane Morrell, Accessibility Coordinator for the City of Sault Ste. Marie.
Greg Kohler, committee member, Accessibility Committee.
Hi, my name is Gray Levante. I'm from Pride Child Development Center.
Sorry there, we just missed the last one again. It was a little gray, I believe it was.
Dre Levante, Pride Child Development Center.
Dre?
Right?
Yes.
Thank you.
Wayne, did you want to just repeat that so we'll stay in order here?
Oh, Wayne Sharpenberg, committee member.
I'm Stephanie Perry, City Planning.
So if people could remember to speak up, I think that would be very helpful all the way around. First order is approval of our minutes of the last meeting. We do have a little bit of updates from the minutes. And maybe we'll just go through that first. One of the items that was on the last minutes was public consultation that was being done by the Accessibility Advisory Committee, actually by our coordinator, Diane. And we had tentatively scheduled that for October 25th. And I understand, Diane, we now have a firm date for that.
We do. We have November 8th at 4 p.m. That happens to be the same day as our committee meeting. So from the committee meeting, I'll be leaving and going to the Active Living Center on Bay Street. Anyone wants to join us, be happy to have you.
And two other matters. One, Diane did fill us in a little bit on a trial swimming lessons that they were starting for people with disabilities. And Diane, I understand that they have now actually done that.
They have. Thank you, Diane, here. There are 6 students enrolled for private swimming lessons for reasons of disability. And I understand lessons are going very well and meeting the individual needs of those students.
And two other points. One was we had asked Diane to send a thank you note to those staff that were involved with the extension of the boardwalk along the Roberta Bondar Marina. And Diane, I understand that you've done that, copied numerous people.
I did. I sent a thank you to Rick Borian, who came and did a presentation for us here at the committee, telling him the feedback from the committee members who had been using it, letting them know that they really enjoy the new walkway and that it is very accessible. And I CC'd some of the other folks that are involved in that project as well.
And the last thing, Diane, I would like to update you on that came out of the last meeting was a request for a meeting with Tom Bear to discuss the fact that our parking enforcement people are not handing out very many, if any, tickets for those people who are parking illegally in barrier-free parking spaces. There is a meeting set up for not next week, the week after, I think.
I believe so.
With Mr. Bear and Peter, I know you're going to be there. I'm going to be there. Diane's going to be there. And we can talk about if we can maybe up that enforcement level a bit, at least for city facilities. Does anyone else have any other comments or questions on the minutes? Go ahead, Wayne.
Wayne Schottenberg. This meeting, you're saying with the parking for people, is it like a private meeting or just open to the public or?
No, it's the city has a contract.
Sorry there.
with
It's just the interpreters. We couldn't hear what the gentleman said. If you could just repeat that or have someone closer to the mic repeat the comment, that would be great. Thank you.
The question was, is this meeting with Mr. Bear open to the public, or is it just us with Mr. Bear?
Yeah.
Basically, it's just Diane, myself, and Peter Chinazzo, and we've asked to meet. The city already has a contract with a private agency to enforce parking, which they do. We're just asking that they enforce the barrier-free parking accessible requirements with a little more energy. And then, so the meeting is not open to the public. It's not a public meeting. It's just basically a meeting amongst city staff. Does anyone else have any questions or errors or omissions or additions that they'd like to make to the last minutes? If not, can I get a mover and a seconder for the vote? Craig, you will move it, and Wayne will second it. All those in favor? Aye. Thank you, that's carried. And as we do for each meeting, I do need to remind you, give some thought. You should do this actually before you come to the meeting. If you have a conflict of interest with any of the matters on the agenda, once again, a conflict of interest only arises where you or a member of your immediate family would have a financial interest. In other words, a financial gain by something that you might be discussing at this meeting. Seeing no indication from anybody that they have a conflict, we're going to proceed. We're going to move on to the next item on our agenda, item number 5, new business. And today we have Francis Tour with us. He's the coordinator of plans examinations, the senior fellow in the building division, and he's going to talk to us a little bit on that's fine too, on changes relating to the accessibility provisions of the Ontario Building Code. Francis? Sorry, Francois, go ahead. Sorry, I've only known you 30 years. Thanks.
Thank you, Don. It's going to be the high level presentation of the changes that were implemented in 2015. There hasn't been a lot of changes since then, and this was a slideshow that I was prepared to show the public what the changes were through the Ontario Building Code. So before 2015, you needed fire alarms, smoke detectors in residential units. As part of the changes, they required them to have a visual signal device installed as part of the living areas. So bedroom, living room, hallways, etc. They had to be integrated to each other, be on a battery backup, but they didn't need to be synchronized. Grab bars were changed to, or we reworded to, prior to the change, you were allowed a horizontal and a vertical bar. They changed it to the L-shaped, a continuous bar, and then they gave you some parameters you had to meet. Also in showers, they implemented a few changes where you needed an L-shaped grab bar near the controls and had specified loads. This one here has changed since the 2015 change. You have no longer the L-shaped bar, but you have the horizontal
Pardon me,
bar at the
Francois.
bottom of the.
Sorry, this is the interpreting team speaking. It seems as though you're referencing a PowerPoint that we cannot see. So we didn't know what bar you were talking about, and then now we're just a little bit behind because we know we understand you're going through accessibility standards that have changed, but we don't know where you're going on the PowerPoint.
So
We were sent a PowerPoint, but we don't know what page you're on.
I have Stephanie, the IT personnel here, figuring it out.
Oh, fantastic. That is very helpful. Thank you so much. And we're just going to switch interpreters now.
All right, so this change has also changed in the last year where you need two vertical bars on each side of the tub in the entry and a vertical bar at the bottom. You no longer require the L-shaped bar. They implemented some new demarcations, leading edge of stairs. At a landing, you need the tactile indicator. There is provisions in the code as to what it looks like, texture, feel, but there's no real requirements when it comes to how many, or unless you have it at the top of the landing.
Francois, can I just interrupt for 1 second?
Yes.
People have questions on the presentation or your comments. Can they just interrupt as we go along?
Absolutely, yes.
In that case, I'm going to interrupt as we go along.
Okay.
And that is on the last drawing, we talked about color contrast strips. And in a previous meeting of the accessibility committee, it came up, do they have to be yellow or can it be any contrasting color?
It doesn't really have to be a color. It just has to be a different texture or color.
Okay, thank you.
So you have at the beginning and the end of ramps, surface finish of ramps and stairs. They added the tactile attention indicator on landings where a doorway opens onto the stairs. So if you have a doorway that opens at the top of a landing stair, you need the tactile attention indicator as shown in this slideshow. There's a new sentence so prior to the 2015 change, there was no universal walking. It was a barrier-free walking. The universal walking, you'll see further down that they implemented a few more items to be added to a universal washroom, bigger, emergency call system. And this will be provided in a further slide. The barrier-free washrooms you'd have to provide a barrier-free washroom and a washroom. Now, if you have less than 10 people occupancy in a certain setting or occupancy, you only need the universal washroom. Just gonna see this. 3 types of washrooms in their application. There's the universal washroom, the barrier-free washroom, which is the old universal washroom, and ambulatory water closet stall. They removed camps for housing of workers, have added to the list of building types exempt from the requirements of section 3.8. So if you have a camp for housing of workers, do not require to conform to barrier-free requirements. Entrances, they're reworded and added, so they clarified the number of pedestrian entrances into a building in column 1, item 2 of the table. And at least one of the pedestrian barrier-free entrances must be the principal entrance into the building. So prior to this change, there was buildings that were exempt from providing barrier-free entrances. With this rewording, every building requires access, barrier-free access throughout the store. So before, if it was less than 300, you didn't have, have a group E, less than 300, you didn't have to provide barrier-free access. Now you do. There's a few, yes?
I'll finish on
No. There's a few occupancies as defined in 3812 that, or 3811 that, there's few requirements that bumps you out of it, but basically every building needs barrier-free entrance. When you get into part 11, like renovations and that, there's 3 specific areas that you have to meet. If you don't meet them, then you don't have to provide barrier-free access, and that will be explained further down. Sandra, do you have a question?
Yeah, will you be explaining the deadline? Is there going to be a deadline when these changes have to take place?
They are enforced at the moment.
At the moment?
They were implemented in 2015.
Oh, okay.
These are the old.
Oh, the old ones, okay, thank
But
you.
nothing except the grab bars for showers or for tubs, barrier-free tubs. Nothing has changed from the initial launch of these requirements.
Thank you, thank you.
Just to confirm, this applies to new construction. It's not retroactive buildings.
This is new, and there's a section here that's going to talk about existing buildings. Okay. Which they prepped up on as well. Barrier-free path of travel, so they increase the rest area. So every 30 meters, you need an area for if anybody else is coming, meeting you, because you're 1100 millimeters is the minimum width of a barrier-free path of travel. But every 30 meters, you need this bump out. And it was 1650, and they bumped it up to 1800 by 1800. The interior walking surface of normally occupied floor areas that do not form part of a required barrier travel are also required to meet the accessibility design parameters. Before, if your building wasn't required to be barrier-free, sometimes you had a set of stairs, and a lot of people would bump in. So now they implemented, even though it's not required to be barrier-free, you have to meet certain parameters, and if you have any, headroom clearances less than 1980, you got to put guards to prevent anybody from hitting their head. Barrier-free path of travel is required to floor areas that are served by a moving walk. They reworded these, they would tell you needed to provide them, but it didn't really say where or how. So they added a few wording in there to specify that the door, the door swing can't prevent somebody approaching to the post stations and that. Residents require verification of the travel to and throughout. So at the beginning, they were like, yeah, we have to provide barrier-free entrance, but not throughout the floor. So they added the throughout. And it was kind of convoluted in the code because it didn't really specify that, but that's what they meant is, yeah, it's required to be barrier-free throughout the floor area, not just the areas that you want to pick and choose. In the fixed seat, so when you have a restaurant with, like all the benches and all that, they specify there's a table in the code now that says if you have so many seats, well, you need to provide at least 2 barrier-free areas designated for adaptable seating. So when we get into apartment buildings, 15% of apartment suites must have a barrier-free path of travel within the suite. So you have to provide barrier-free path of travel to the bedroom, the bathroom, kitchen or kitchen space, and to living room or spaces. But it doesn't really, the only parameters they give you is the bathroom, and we'll see it later on in this slideshow. It doesn't require you to provide specialty, counters in the kitchen, just a space around the cabinets. As Diane knows, we went through this several times, and there's nothing in the code that gets us to get them to provide the proper, counter heights and stuff like that. So these are requirements for the bedroom door. The entrance door needs a power actuator, and you need 1100 millimeters. To go back to the 15% of it, so if you have the 15% needs to be distributed per floor and per suite type. You can't have all 1-bedroom apartments barrier-free and 20 2-bedrooms, 3-bedroom. They have to be separated, and they have to comply to the 15% to every bedroom. There's 1 bedrooms. These are the requirements for, again, the grab bar for the tub has changed. We don't have any new illustrated guide for this. This is normally a residential washroom where you need the 1500 millimeters diameter unobstructed. And this is where it becomes a little difficult sometimes because like, as you can see on the left, you have the door opening. It still permits it, but in most cases that door is obstructing to close. So that's the only thing that yes.
Sorry, Johnny. In our city, and I know you deal with a lot of planners and construction and general contractors. Do you ever suggest pocket doors?
That gets a little, because the code requires special hardware.
Okay.
Pocket doors are sometimes harder to open and close than just lever action.
With the new pocket doors with your, okay, just a thought.
Yeah, there's have been, but they need to put special devices and hardware on the open and close.
Because I know they're always upgrading the pieces for pocket doors that
Yes.
even people with arthritis can get their fingers and move it. Just a thought.
Yeah, it's been asked a lot, and it's just to find the right hardware and right.
Okay, thank you.
So the 15% of, like I said, barrier-free apartment suites shall be in proportion to the type of suites in the building. So you can't have like 10 1-bedrooms, 1 2-bedroom. They added the access to parking space. So again, this is only if you provide it. It doesn't say you shall provide it, but if you do provide it, you need to meet these dimensions. Then we get into the washroom required to be barrier free. So this is the universal washroom. Every building needs a universal washroom.
Francois, I hate to do this to you, but can you back up one slide here to access the parking areas?
So if you provide an access aisle in front of the building,
Right?
you need to meet these dimensions. If you don't meet it. It doesn't say in the code, it doesn't say you shall. It says if an exterior passenger loading zone is provided, it shall have, and then it gives you these dimensions. It doesn't say you shall provide passenger loading zone.
Okay, I got it now. I didn't quite follow the drawing, but now with that explanation, that helps. Okay, thanks.
And then it just lets you know how many universal washrooms you need. Washrooms required to be barrier free. So in your 4 to 9 water closets in a washroom, you need a barrier free water closet stall. And the stall is quite bigger than a normal stall. And so we get a lot of applications that they'll show 9 water closets, and say, okay, well, you have to provide a stall, and say, well, we only have to provide 8, so we're only going to provide. So it just takes a lot more room, and if they don't have to put it in, then they're not putting it in because they have the one universal washroom 45 meters. Ambulatory water closet. So if you don't have, and this is usually in like part 11, you don't have enough room to do a full universal washroom, and then we'll implement a few barrier-free requirements. Required to be distributed vertically.
Sorry, Francois, that last slide, the last sentence, we missed what you said.
I guess when they new requirements provide an inventory of long stories not required to have a barrier for travel yet. So a lot of times we don't see, like when in renovations and that they'll implement ambulatory water closet in stories that are not required to be barrier free. Make sense?
I think what you said the first time was where you don't have to have a universal washroom on a story on a particular floor.
Yeah.
You still have to have a barrier-free washroom.
If it's provided by, if you have an elevator, you have to provide barrier-free requirements. You don't necessarily need a universal washroom because you only need one for a building with 3 stories.
Oh, okay.
And then they'll implement. So this is where you would implement the ambulatory water stalls and barrier-free washrooms, but not necessarily a universal washroom.
But I got it, but a barrier-free washroom.
Yes,
But not a universal.
that's right.
Got it.
And then hotels is the same as suites of like apartment building. Controls for certain buildings were changed. The thermostats, manual pull stations are 1200 millimeters exactly. The building service and building safety devices like the electrical switches, the thermostat, thermostat and intercom, and that have a flexibility of 900 to 1100 meters. Barrier-free suites entrance door shall have a power operator and door viewer. So as you can see before, they didn't require you to have a power door opener. Now they do, with a viewer not more than 1100 millimeters. So you can still have the one, at normally height, but they're requiring you to add a second one. Doors between barrier-free suites. So if you have 2 barrier-free suites back to back, these you need at least the 860 clearance, which before now, like the code didn't really say from from frame to edge of door, it just said 860. Just said, now they specified it to make sure you have that 860 clearance. They require the emergency power receptacle, require that at least one barrier-free suite, emergency power receptacle to be identified, the legible sign, you have the accessibility signs. Exterior walks, when you have an exterior walk that doesn't have any curves, you have to add the tactile attention indicator. As you can see here, black is where you wouldn't have a transition from the walk to a vehicular access. So it's here alerts the pedestrians that there is something, either a parking lot, vehicular access. And then you have, this was just reworded, increased from 1200 to 1500. So this measurement here was only 1200 and they increased it to 15. Clear width is 860. They reworded the wording. Before it would say opening of 860, but now it's from the door to the frame. License field, so yeah, they have, so you can't have like the knob devices anymore. You have to have the graspable and
The leeward.
yes, yeah. And then this was just reworded for aligned doors where a 15mm clear turning space was aligned. New design solution for power door operating controls. It's the same, and then they show you again, you know, how far, how high you have to put your power operator devices. Scanning devices you can use, must be capable of detecting a person in a wheelchair. Ramps, abrupt change in direction, clarified to mean a change of 90 degrees or more. Doing a handrail clearance also required between the handrail and a guard on your ramp. So on your ramp, you'll have the guard, which is the guard, and you have the handrail. And it's before you were able to use the guard and the handrail as a handrail guard. Now you can't. You need the guard and the handrail. Sure. Ramps, intermediate handrails required on ramps wider than 200mm. So they implemented the 3836. You have in like group seating, fixed companion seats, and they provided some requirements for barrier-free seating. So in front of barrier field was installed. Again, that's the. I want to get to the universal washroom. That's the water closet stall. Again, as you can see, it's a lot bigger than, because you need a turning radius and an approach not less than 900mm for transfer space. So when they give us a drawing with 9 water closet stalls and we tell them they need to provide one of these, they'll immediately say, well, okay, well, we're only required 8, so we're not going to the 9th. Water closet stall. So if you can have the in some cases they'll have the water closet closer to the wall, and you have to provide hand guards on each side or handrails and grab bars. In this instance, you need 2 transfer stalls on or transfer spaces on each side and fold down grab bars.
Can I leave in here just for 1 minute? Like, so but that door to the water closet is not automatic, right? That's, you work that manually?
No, it's, well, yeah, the stall that is, yes.
The stall is manual.
Yes, but there's special, like, there's spring hinges and all that stuff, and it can be more than certain. Force to open it. There's a lot more. This is just a stall, right?
Right, that's what I was wondering, because I mean, if it's a separate room, it does have automatic.
Oh, yes, if it's a separate room, I have a solder actuator.
But it was just a stall.
That's right,
That's not a water.
that's right.
Okay. I'm not asking you to fix that, I'm just clarifying.
And then again, with the grab bars, they added and changed some wording. Pull down bars, stalls. Then we have the ambulatory one.
I'm not sure if it's Carrie, if they clarify it or not, or if it, I think it matters, but when you're entering a stall, if you have a wheelchair or a walker or a device and the door pushes inward, you can't get enough clearance inside. So they didn't really say that the door has to
These are,
upward,
yeah.
it shows in the picture.
well,
So it's assumed because of the clearance that you need within the stall, that the door would open out.
these are just the changes or rewording they did, and the code itself has parameters and dimensions need to meet. So it's 1700 from the face of the stall to any other like counter or wall. So it's not shown in this one, but in the code it is. It'll tell you have to, if you have an in swinging door, you need to meet these clearances. Out swinging door, you need to meet these clearances to walls or countertops or
Thank you.
accessible water deposit seat height range increase from 400 to 460 to 430 to 480. So they changed the heights. They hand operated flushing control for accessible water closet when automatic flushing is not provided. Urinals, at least one urinal and a multi-urinal barrier-free or ambulatory washroom must be barrier-free. So if you have, I'm pretty sure the urinals is if you only have one you don't need, but more than one you have at least, but you have one barrier-free urinal installed as per these requirements. And then they give you all the clearances, and before 2015, there was no provisions for barrier-free urinal.
Francois, so this is all just for new construction. What about for renovated spaces?
Yeah, so renovated spaces, we'll get into that
Okay.
in a few slides here.
Okay.
There's in part 11, there's 3 things they need to, if they don't meet, they have to provide today's barrier-free requirements. If they meet a few things, they have to provide a few barrier-free things.
Okay.
We'll go through this. And then they added like clear spaces in front of lavatories. And then so the universal washroom is where this was a big one. They asked for shelving, turning radiuses increased from 1500 to 1700. There's mounting requirements for heights, motion sensor for lighting. Emergency call system has been introduced for the universal washroom. Space for an adult change table must be provided. It doesn't have to be implemented, but it has to be, the space has to be there and the reinforcement in the wall has to be there for, in case you want to fasten this table to it.
I'm just gonna jump in. That's of great importance to this committee because we'd like to see adult change tables added at all city facilities, especially the new ones that have been built, that will have the space requirements for that.
But not necessarily that table or,
Not the table.
yeah, and that's
Will
what,
not include table.
yeah, they just ask for the space and the blocking in the wall in case you want to provide a permanent table. But the space is at least if you need to bring a table in there, you have that space. I think there is a design here, and that's where. So a lot bigger than the normal barrier-free walkway they had prior to 2015. You have like clear transfer spaces, you have approach side, and you have the space for the adult change table. And on top of that, you have, so, and this is where the code is kind of, or the standard is kind of wishy-washy, because it says you need to provide the emergency call system, but it doesn't say where to put it. So we'll see a lot of people putting it over here, we'll see a lot of people putting it by the toilet.
Sorry there, just for the interpreters, the emergency what? Oh, we missed that.
Emergency call system.
Call system, thank you.
Showers and tubs, they implemented some clear spaces and that, and then for the tubs, the grab bars have changed. Shelves or counters for telephones, at least one built-in shelf or counter, not all mandated for all used telephone installations. So if you have multiple telephones, you have to provide these shelves at a certain height, and they're needs to comply to the standard. Drinking fountains, at least one barrier-free drinking fountain now required for multiple drinking fountain installation on barrier-free accessible floors and normally occupied non-barrier-free accessible floor areas. And then they give you the parameters and measurements. So platforms, like the loading platforms and that, now you need to have the tactile indicator. That like loading platforms where you can't put a guard there. It's not really specified by the code to put a guard there. You at least have a tactile indicator on it.
Right, we'd see that at like subway stations, we don't have that here, but that would be an example.
Yes. So they implemented some certain pool requirements. New requirements for tactile attention indicator for certain pools, the pool deck. Modified and weight. So modified and weight pool, modified pools like a beach, you know, those pools where you just walk in, there's no edge and nothing, so you don't want to provide it at that type of pool. Must be provided to and throughout the pool deck of an outdoor public pool. Access into and from the water of a public pool and stories required to have barrier-free path of travel must be provided by a barrier-free ramp or a pool lift. And then they give you dimensions you need to meet. So the ramps, they added some requirements for the ramps. Access to public spas. And then they show you like where to put your grab bars in the pool or spa. Like a spa is like a hot tub. And then rapid transits where we don't see clarified barrier-free entrances requirements for rapid transit stations. We don't see that here. So stud wall reinforcement for like bathrooms where you don't necessarily have to put the grab bars, but you need to provide the reinforcement for it in case later on you want to put it in. Tactile attention indicator required at the top of certain stairs and landings. Visual signal, extensive renovation. This is where we get into existing buildings. So there's only 3 conditions are not required to trigger compliance with construction in an existing building to the barrier-free requirements in section 3.8. Certain barrier-free design requirements will now be required in renovations to suites on floor level that are not accessible from a barrier-free path of travel and or less than 300 meters square. So the provision of this sentence do not apply buildings exempt from compliance with section 3.8. So in the code, when you get into part 11, read it from the code because on here it's good. So Except as provided in section 11.5, which is something different, the proposed construction within an existing suite shall comply with the requirements of section 3.8 where new interior walls or floor assemblies are installed. The suite has an area greater than 300 meters squared. And the suite is located in a floor area where the existing difference in elevation between adjacent ground level and floor level is not more than 200. And normally occupied floor area which is accessible by a passenger type elevator or other platform equipped passenger elevating device from an entrance story. where the
Hi,
access-
Francois, I'm sorry, you're reading something that's not on the slide, and because we're already having a hard time hearing you, we're not able to interpret any of that you just read.
Sorry about that.
No problem.
I was just taking a sentence out of the Ontario Building Code to explain in greater detail extensive renovations and where barrier-free the 3.8 would be implemented. So new interior walls or floor assemblies are installed and this is debatable all the time. We go, well, we're just changing this wall and that wall. No, but you're changing the whole layout of the. And you do, so you have to meet those 3 items, right? If you don't, then there's some barrier-free requirements that specifies you need to do, but not all are 3.8.
And just for anybody at home or here, the slides were provided. And you're welcome to take a look at them at a later time when you can absorb the material. And if any questions come up, we can certainly facilitate that.
Absolutely, yeah. If you want to get into greater details on universal washrooms and stuff like that, then let me know and we can.
Question, it's Sandra. I know our city website is very well kept up to date. Out of curiosity, on our website, is there opportunity to put like a boost or like something to near the permit application area? Say, don't forget, there's a couple updates, something just to trigger viewers that are on the website to go to one of these other areas?
There is.
Or have you done that already?
So once the these requirements came out, 2015, we had a public presentation for all the contractors and builders. But we haven't put, I don't think we put it on the website.
As a friendly reminder, hypothetically.
Absolutely, yes.
And I guess I'm more interested in those that are doing renovations that are not the contractors that do it every day as their constant job, but people that do renovations once in a while may not be as familiar. Thank you.
You're welcome. Is there any other questions or?
Just on the extensive renovations, I mean, I see that there's 2 criteria. One is it's 300 meters, 300 square meters. That would like rule out any residential development, would it not? I mean, that's pretty big.
If barrier 3 doesn't say housing, barrier 3 is only for commercial or.
That's probably bigger,
Yeah. Like and it tells you in here that 3.8, so we have barrier 3. So the requirements of this section apply to all buildings except houses, triplexes, boarding or rooming houses with fewer than 8 boarders or roomers. Buildings of Group F Division 1 major occupancy, and buildings that are not intended to be occupied on daily or full-time basis, including automatic telephone exchangers, pump houses, and substations, and then camps for housing holders, which they implemented in 2015.
Can you just back up one slide? So what we're saying is extensive renovation means you're moving walls, that's major. It's required even if that floor level is not accessible. If you're doing major renovation,
If you're doing major renovations, the space is greater than 300 meters square. And you gotta meet the 3 ands, right?
okay,
Yeah, you gotta meet the 3 ands, then you're put the 3A part of the code. If you're not, then there's a few provisions, but you don't have to part of 3A code.
so if it's like 300 square meters is roughly 3,000 square feet, so if it's 3,000 square feet. You don't have to meet these provisions.
No.
If it's on a floor that's not accessible, you don't have to meet these provisions. So mainly apply to commercial developments such as Station Hall, for instance,
Yeah.
if they're going to do something with the old search firm.
Or if you have a building that has, that hits those 3 points.
Yeah,
Even
even
a lot of them, you can. The threshold is less than 200, you're greater than 300, and you're doing a major renovations or changes.
so it really does hit with major renovations. That's really big. Thanks. So sorry, what's okay, all right. We're not having sidebar discussions here at all. No, we would never do that. Okay, back to you, Francois.
I think that's it.
So take over your.
Very informative.
Francois, silly question. Not that there are never silly questions, but so when a new building comes in, it's built, meets all of these requirements, regardless of whether it's institutional or residential or commercial, whatever. Is there anything in the building code that requires, like as the years go by now and things don't work well, is there anything in the code that requires, automatic door openers that don't work now to be replaced?
Like existing buildings?
Yeah, like a building that was built 5 years ago, met all of the requirements.
Yeah.
And over time, things are going to break and require maintenance and need to be repaired. Is there anything in the code that requires that? Once you guys issue an occupancy permit?
It's not really, it doesn't, the code is, it's not like, the code is prescriptive or. Yeah, so, fire code is a live document. But there's nothing saying you have to, it would probably be in property standards, maybe, well, it's not even a code, fire code, but
Fire code still kicks in, okay.
I don't know, fire code would deal with very free items.
They would deal with some of the items, like the flashing lights on the
It would deal,
smoke detectors.
yeah, it would deal with smoke detectors, but I don't know if they deal with like power door operators and.
If, Chair, there is a question for our president, fire department.
Because once we give them the occupancy.
Our
we know-
apologies. The last comment or question we missed.
His comment was, that would be a question for our friends at the fire department.
My apologies, Mr. Chair, for not having that.
Diane here, I'll just jump in with this. Although there is no requirement in the building code for maintenance of items, under the Design of Public Spaces standard, which is part of the Integrated Accessibility Standards regulation, there is mention of maintenance requirements, both emergency and preventive. But that would require businesses to have their own accessibility plan. And a lot of businesses don't necessarily have an accessibility plan. They should, they're required to, but it's, there's a lot of small businesses that fly under the radar.
Thank you. Are there any other questions for Francois? Sandra?
Sandra, I just want to say, I'm glad you mentioned that, Diane, because you're right, there are a lot of businesses that fly under the radar, and that's what I was talking about renovations, because there are people that fly under the radar that do so-called renovations. I'm glad you mentioned that.
Well, Francois, thank you very much for coming. We really appreciated this. This is very insightful. And we've learned a few things in here. Thank you. Welcome. Back to our agenda. And Francois, you're welcome to stay, but if you want to leave, I understand that. We're okay to. Okay, thanks for coming. Back to our agenda, we're going to move on to the enabling accessibility fund. I'm going to ask Diane to talk about Ben Donald and what is proposed with that, or at least what state we're at the point.
Yes, thanks. So an enabling accessibility fund has been put out by the Ministry for Senior Accessibility. And it's every year that they put out this grant for the public. They changed the criteria a little bit to try to get different areas. Thanks, Francois. To get different areas that haven't had an opportunity for funding. So this round of enabling accessibility is for the youth accessibility leaders. So it was, the criteria was anyone under the age of 30, over the age of 18, under the age of 30, could apply to be a youth accessibility leader. And there's a grant for $10,000 for barrier removal initiatives in the community. So it could be through the corporation, it could be through a local business, it could be to do some accessibility upgrades for persons with disabilities, to have more accessible spaces. So from the corporation's point of view, I just put out feelers to see if there were any youth out there that might be interested. One of the youth that I contacted was a previous summer student at the Accessibility Center. And he was interested in finding out more, so he applied. And now we've talked a little bit about potential projects. He had come up with a short list of 4 possible projects. So one was sensory spaces. Another one was adult change tables. Another one was hearing loops. The last one was stopgap portable ramp project. This office has participated in stopgap in the past. That one appealed to him the most. So that's the one that we're going through right now. It will probably be that project. We have a couple obstacles we need to find out some details about. And if those work out, that project will then go forward. And portable ramps will then be available to any businesses in the downtown that may be interested. We potentially can reach outside of the downtown as well. If this project goes forward with a $10,000 grant, that would work out to about 22 or 23 portable ramps. Each ramp is on average about $450 for materials and workmanship. We're trying to figure out how we might be able to get the workmanship done and just pay for materials. So that's in progress, and we'll keep everyone up to date as things progress.
Questions for Diane on that? I have a suggestion, which is I think we probably know enough people in business that we could get the materials.
Great.
And it's Carrie. What about seeing if the high schools would not take on those kind of projects with labor?
Yes, that's exactly what we're looking at. So that's one of the challenges with that particular thing, we don't know the answer yet, is that there is a requirement for builders to have a certain amount of liability insurance. And I don't know if the high schools, we're working through that, so I don't know what that answer will end up being, but great idea.
Mr. Chair, so you look at it. And if you talk to the OEA coordinator in the high school, these are the trade coordinators, they would know what the board carries with regard to liability coverage.
I have not, we're working with a teacher who works in one of the shop programs. You mentioned, oh yeah,
Yeah, they're the, I think that's trades coordinator. According to each of the schools, I met the representative for the Huron Spirit Catholic School Board rep years ago. And he explained that he was sort of the senior shops coordinator for the entire board. I don't know if that position still exists, but he was the linchpin if a young person wanted to move from shop classes to moving toward their red seal trade, which is the certificate. That is the formal certification for a tradesperson in the province of Ontario. In there are over 300 different professions require a seat. It's the step beyond even going to community college. It's the step to become a licensed tradesperson. And they might know what the boards, some of the boards carried insurance historically, some did not. It was a bit of a checkerboard, my dear. That's how I would describe it as some. Like the school. Central Algoma and the school in Lake used to have more in-depth shops programs when they were independent, when they came out to
Hi there. Sorry, just the interpreters. What were the names of the schools there? If you could just start from that point again, we missed that.
I would just make mention of the Huron Spirit Separate School Board. I did not go into specific school names.
Oh, the school board. Okay, thank you.
Other than say that high school in Lake and Central Algoma Secondary School, which at one time had bigger shop programs than is customary under the conventional board system now. This goes back to the amalgamation. It's an area of some delicacy over time that the local folk regret losing those programs. So,
Other questions? Okay, so Diane, has a decision been made that we're going ahead with the stopgap program? Is that, or are we just like really looking at that?
we're really looking at that. I don't know if we'll be able to get past some of those hurdles. So we're working through that.
Do you have Nancy's files on that when it was done previously? Or for those of you who are listening on the line here, a former planner was also very involved. Who's now working in Saskatoon. And we may have files in the office.
Patrick and Josh Ingram from the Downtown Association were part of that. And I believe it was through the carpentry program that we had through Ontario Works.
Was,
And that's how everything was covered.
but there is actually a contract which would require with stopgap.
Yeah.
Yes, I've received materials from Stopgap and they've revamped the program a little bit through COVID. So I've got to go through that as well. We've spoken, we've had our first meeting together via Zoom. And I'll have to look through the materials to see if that fits with us as well.
Perfect. And the reason I was asking about stopgap, I mean, it's a great program. It's phenomenal. And after this committee was involved with that previously, we had a number of people call and say, hey, how do I get one of those? And the answer was, too bad, we're done. That's it. You know, and a lot of those people were outside of the downtown actually. But it would also be helpful. And you know, I'm not trying to make more work for Ben here, but sensory spaces, adult change tables, hearing loops, any background work on that that he could do for future projects that we can look at over the next couple of years, because we can put that in our multi-year accessibility barrier removal plan. We can grow it.
Yeah, we'll take a look at that. We have got from the autism strategy, we have got some work on sensory spaces. The out of change table, not so much, but I do have a fairly good idea of where they could and probably should be going. Hearing loops, not as much. I've looked at that a little bit, but not, I'd like to see it in customer service area, such as the John Roads, such as perhaps the tax department at City Hall, wherever there's customer service, it would be wonderful.
Carrie?
Sorry, I have to add to that hearing loop part, and then just to maybe look at other options outside of hearing loops for people that can't afford a hearing aid to connect to the hearing loop, don't really have hearing loss, so because you need a hearing aid to connect to them. So in other cases, there are many people with hearing loss without a hearing aid, many who do not know how to connect the hearing aid they have to the loop. So then the whole unit becomes inaccessible and is not used when, if there are other methods that the average person can access, for example, a microphone system. So the average person like myself, the lady was wearing a mask on the other side of the screen. So I couldn't understand what she was saying, so she turned on the mic that was connected in the center of the plexi board, and then I was able to hear her better. And I don't have hearing loss, but it provided me that access, where a hearing loop is only for people with hearing aids who know how to connect the hearing aid to the system. So just a thought.
Thank you, and excellent reminder to consult with our friends in Canadian Hearing Society and in the community.
Anything else on our youth accessibility leader?
Great.
Let's move on then. Diane, and so next item on the agenda, this is just great. You know, I just say Diane. We're revisiting our lack of accessible bleachers next door here in the John Roads.
Yeah, this is a project that's been on the books. I'm sure Craig will tell you from the very beginning. Have accessible, and what we mean by accessible for people with mobility devices that are not able to climb stairs to use the regular bleachers at the John Roads, right next door to us. If you hear the hockey every once in a while, there are some add-on bleachers with ramping that I think will work. This was in our 2019 plan. We've since moved on to another plan. At that time in 2019, it was deemed not feasible for the amount of funding that was available. But I believe we found some new options for that would come in an accessibility budget. So we're going to take another look at that, and we'll report back again if that's something we're able to move forward with our barrier removal reserves, which I remember, I'm just going to add in, Craig, at last meeting you asked what the barrier removal reserves were. I quoted inaccurately. I think I said in the area of 50,000 undesignated. We're in the area of 25 undesignated funds.
And that sounds a little more likely as we try not to carry too many projects over from year to year. We're allowed to do it. Thanks, City Council for that privilege. I don't know if any other body is allowed to do that in this custom. But we don't normally leave that much to the reserve fund or there's usually enough to do.
Yeah. So we'll be looking at that again.
And moving on to the next item on the agenda, there's no questions on our accessible bleachers. I think most of you, maybe all of you, saw an email from Carol asking the possibility of having lighting installed at Rosedale Park. There's been a lot of work at Rosedale Park, and I don't want to thank a service club because I probably get the wrong one. Is that the Kiwanis?
It's both Kiwanis and Child Carol Goma.
And Kiwanis and Child.
Kiwanis of Club of Sault Ste. Marie and Kiwanis Club Lakeshore and Child Carol Goma.
Have all made donations to get some
Correct, sir.
really nice playground equipment up in there. It's very nice. And Carol has asked if we could have lighting installed in the park. Dan, I know that you forwarded that on to Virginia and the parks people. I know that the city's policy is parks are closed at night. This is a little bit different, however, because most of our neighborhood parks are sort of adjacent to a street, and there is some street lighting. Here, the playground is set quite well, very far back from. But we will wait to hear what Diane has to say. I'd like to hear anything further.
No, I did forward that request on to find out, was there plans to be lighting, and I did not know that generally speaking, our parks are not lit. They are a dawn to dusk. So while there are daylight hours, so that is not something that's being looked at for this project either.
Because the property in the building is part of DSAB, I can bring that up at the next, not the board meeting, but I can bring that up at my next executive meeting. And happy to do that.
The Rosedale school property is owned by DSAP.
Yes.
It's them. I think where the playground equipment is actually owned by the city. You think it's DSAP? Okay.
Okay.
I will find out for sure. But because I think that whole expansive property was all the original school. And that DSAP owns that entirety unless we gave a portion of it for the park. But I can find out at my next executive meeting. Okay.
Good stuff.
I have a comment from home. It's from Derek LaValle, if I can speak.
Go ahead, Derek.
Okay, just so you guys know that we've been working on, I'm gonna go back a little bit. We've been working on the arena project since 2004.
Evergreen.
That's correct. That's
So this better work this time.
I hope so too, Derek.
2004, I joined up, and we've been talking about this arena business for a long time. The new McMeekin has been built, and we had a past accessibility coordinator, Shire, and the community center was just built, finished being built.
Thanks, Derek. I think we all agree on that. There is, we hopefully a more feasible solution. For those who are maybe new to the committee, what happened last time was, I think some people were a little overly enthused. No one on this committee, by the way, and they wanted to basically expand seating in the entire arena, and that started running into very large dollars. And it also required changes to the heating and ventilation system as well, because when you add lots more people, you have to improve the ventilation system. And that was kind of priced right out of sight. And I believe the money that this committee, and this is actually before our time, notice when I say our time together here, I believe the money that had been set aside for that went to put the paved trail around Topsail Island. Craig, does that sound about right to you?
I think the projects were transformed, Chair, because the project to expand this enterprise, as you said, it grew exponentially.
Yeah.
And not, the idea wasn't sound, but it got beyond our budget, beyond our scope. I believe that's how it was tracked. Because there are other projects that are more within our scope and priority. And this wouldn't be used, I'm quite certain, viewing platforms wouldn't be used. Because this is still the principal arena for the Sioux Thunderbirds, the tier 2 community. And there are fans games, I've actually. But it's one of those things that when people looked at it, they realized that it had been something that over. Some of the seating was underinstalled, would be how I would describe it when this building, this arena was created. Or certain things that could have been added in, could have been thought originally.
Sorry,
That's
this is
okay.
the interpreting team. We're having a very difficult time understanding the gentleman who's speaking right now.
Sorry, and what we're gonna do is we're gonna summarize that part of the agenda and move on then. What Craig was referring to is when this building was built, they didn't make any provision for barrier-free viewing areas in the hockey rink. And we're going to revisit that hopefully on a little more modest level, and we can get something done in fairly near. And as Derek pointed out, this has been going on since 2004. Moving right along to our next item on the agenda, the Parks and Rec Master Plan. You'll notice the DM is going to send something out after the meeting. I want to assure you that is not Don McConnell. That will be Diane Morel. So Diane, I'm going to pass this to you, as well as actually the next 3 items.
That's right. And so to speak to that, I actually did send out the survey before the meeting. And I took the first one off because I read it quickly. And then I realized the second and the third were also questions, not so much for the committee, but for what group do we belong to and who do we represent? So I believe just the last question, because they're trying to get a high level feedback from the master plan. So if you take a look at that, please send me your feedback as soon as possible, because I know they want to compile that. So if you have anything to add to that, please do so as soon as possible. I'm going to go back, Mr. Chair, to
I don't know if this is appropriate it's Sandra. I don't know if it's appropriate mentioning this idea, but I was doing some reading, and as you probably know, in Edmonton, the city of Edmonton, they have a new park, and it's called the Color Spectrum Park. And basically, it's Edmonton's only autism-focused children's art studio and park. It was just on the news a few days ago. So I don't know if we can maybe talk about that at our next meeting. Maybe explore it to see if we can learn something from this project that Edmonton has done. But I'm just bringing it up because it could be part of the whole master plan hypothetical.
Sorry, Sandra, what was the name of the park?
It's called the Color Spectrum. Edmonton, and it's under the Edmonton Playgrounds. And if it's helpful, just bear with me for a second. I looked it up under Edmonton Playgrounds. And if you Google Edmonton Playgrounds, the Color Spectrum, it should pop up.
Thank you. I think it is fair to say that I'm going to get the wrong name, but they have done the sensory playground.
yes.
They've been very well used by everybody. But that was
Exactly.
brilliant.
Exactly. And if I may say, when you look at this one, it takes that in consideration, but adds another layer on top. And I think someone mentioned that it's nice to have a playground that's 4 seasons, and this one is in the works.
Okay.
And it's not very large. It's about the same size as this wonderful meeting area. Hence a start. And I haven't been to Rosedale for a long time. I don't know if there's an opportunity to have a room there, but it's a very good read. And again, I was hoping that maybe we can dive into it more if it makes sense and talk about it at the next meeting, only if Diane thinks it makes sense and it adds value to this.
Okay.
Thank you.
Wonderful. Yes, I'm going to go back to 6 old business. Snow clearing priorities from the AAC. We talked about that in the spring, I think.
We did.
About snow clearing priorities and how the city has, a map, which I can share again. Where they do plow and where they don't plow, and the map is current as of last year's schedule. So it shows certain areas that have not been plowed, and the committee identified at that time 2 specific areas to request to be plowed, and that was Key Patch to the end of Wadding Place, Lake Street, and Pentagon area. The other one was the north side of Second Line from St. Mary's High School to the Humane Society. I've received no other feedback from the committee, but if anyone has areas that they feel are priority specifically for people with disabilities, especially because we can bring that focus, that we can submit that on behalf of the committee. So please let me know before October 31st. So let's say October 25th.
I'm not sure, it's Carrie, I'm not sure if we should request it maybe past the Humane Society. I noticed the city's created this wonderful wide path, leading all the way down the hill, right down to Blackfoot Road, which is great. I'm not sure how much it would be walked on in the winter or how much accessibility you need, but it is a great path that you see more people walking on, you know, that they finishing it up. It's wonderful. Right, just a thought.
Lisa? Sorry.
Traditionally, the city does not maintain, are you talking about part of the hub trail?
It's not part of the hub.
Yeah, it is.
It is, it is. It's
on
the north, it's the extension, yeah. So we don't maintain the hub trail. It's an unmaintained trail.
And I think there's reasons for that as well, because of the frost. We found there's no insulation, and then our beautiful paths may become very, you know, heaving and sinking. So I think there's a little bit of reason for that. But if that is also the sidewalk
Yeah.
to the second line, we can take a look at that. I'll just see, because I can't picture what's there.
Well, it is a sidewalk, at least from the area that you've indicated, and then it looks like it almost turns into the trail. So I'm not exactly sure where one starts and ends.
I think this report came last year, someone who pointed out that there are students who volunteer at the Humane Society, and their only option is to walk on the road. And walking on Second Line was not a good option. Hence the request.
Yeah.
They call that.
But any other areas that we should look at, please get back to Diane, and if you could do that like in the next 2 weeks, that would be great. It's less than 2 weeks, I'm in trouble. Okay, all right.
Comment from Derek Lavalley.
Go ahead, Derek.
I just want to let you guys know, as soon as the Legion is done, that is going to have to be the highest priority. And as soon as the place goes up on Old Garden River Road, that's going to be the highest priority. And also when Pino decides to get his building on the north end of town towards Wawa, that is going to be the highest priority too.
Derek, can you restate the last place that you said?
Pino's Get Fresh, the one that's going to be built by Pino's. It's right next to the hospital.
Yes.
That is-
All of the sidewalks on Great Northern Road are cleared already, but I will add that onto our notes, okay?
Okay, thank you. That's just letting you know, like every new building that gets built, we have to have room for snow.
Thanks, Derek.
Yep,
All right, I'll get into the next one then. So 6.3 was the Sault Ste. Marie website update. This committee very generously decided to support the implementation of our new website. Just to let you know where that's at. The request for proposals have gone out.
My apologies. This is the interpreter speaking. Who is supporting the update of the website? We missed the name of the company or person.
Accessibility Advisory Committee.
She said this committee, which is.
Yes, thank you. So the request for proposal have come back. We reviewed them yesterday. And I believe we have an agreement on a short list of 4. There was quite a bit of discussion around the table between IT staff, corporate communications, myself, and then our procurement person. You know, making sure that all points are heard, and we agreed on 4. So 4, I believe, will be asked for the next stage to show us what they can do, what will this site look like, how will it perform. Timeframes, I still don't, we don't have a solid time frame on this, but the general consensus is that something has to be in place by, at least started by the end of this year. So that is where that's at. Next one is plaza update. Our plaza is just about ready to go. Parts of it are open. The mill market, not mill market, it's the Sioux market is now open and running. The splash pad we'll see next year. We'll see the ice skating surface operating this winter, I believe, and we'll soon see an opening to all of the plaza soon. One bit of feedback that I got from the plaza that's already there, and I think it's a really cool thing that happened with an unintended accessible feature. There is a wall between the plaza and Stone Office Supply that has, it's a metal and it has pieces taken out. I don't know what you call it. There's spaces in it that show pictures of various different things. Our good friend and colleague Carol, oh my goodness, Carol, I'm just losing her last name right now, has taken a look at it and she says, oh my goodness, that's accessible art. So it was a really interesting bit of feedback. I don't think it was intended that way, but that was the result. What a wonderful thing. So that's feedback. When the plaza does open, I encourage everyone to go and see it. Bring your feedback back. Let's see how things are working. We'll go forward.
Further to that, Diane, the grand opening is going to be Saturday, October the 28th, which is the same day as the Halloween on Queen, where the downtown merchants do the trick-or-treating and all that sort of thing. So it just made sense to combine those 2 events together. And that's great with Carol Magnan.
Thank you. All right. I think that's covered everything. Did I miss anything?
No, we had mentioned earlier about public consultation has now been rescheduled November 8th, which coincides with our next meeting. So our next meeting will not go past 3:30,
Three.
3, 2. We'll end early.
We'll do our best.
Do our best. Bear removal updates, we also talked about this a little bit, unless you've got anything else you wanted to add, we're gonna be meeting with Tom and just kind of see if we can increase enforcement at least on municipally owned lots. Was there anything else you wanted to add to them? No. The site plan committee, which has been very active over the last 8 months, did not have a meeting this past month because there were no site plans that arrived in front of them. But that's fine, that's all good. At this point of year, I can tell you every contractor in town is trying to get whatever they're working on done before the snow flies. So they're not thinking about new projects at this point. I suspect that will be quiet until early in the new year. And does anyone have anything else they'd like to say or a question they'd like to ask or comment? Lisa?
I would just like to remind Diane for the next meeting to invite Andy Starzomski and Carl O'Neill so we can discuss what came up at the last meeting about the crossing times at Northern Avenue and Second Line, as well as.
Hi there. Sorry, this is just the interpreters. Could you just repeat the names of who you're going to invite?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Andy Starzomski and Carl with a C, Rumiel, Rumiel. They're both from the city of Sault Ste. Marie. So this is regarding crossing times at some busy areas that have a lot of people in not just mobility devices, but other issues that they may have in terms of crossing and understanding the crossing.
Any other comments or questions? Go ahead, Kevin.
It's Carrie. Along with that, we had talked about at one point, at one meeting, crossing from Chapel Street. No, it's not. Yeah, it is Chapel Street to like Rome's, the grocery store crossing Willow, is it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And how it's very populated there, that people are crossing quite often, but it's very unsafe to cross. Maybe a discussion on how we can.
I think it's fair that the two people we want to talk to are Andy and Carl. So maybe we could give them a bit of a heads up on that. And I agree with you, Carrie. I know that a lot of those people are quite elderly. They're maybe not moving quite as quick. And you're right, it's fair for a number of people coming. So we can, we'll give Andy and Carl a heads up on that. Any other comments, questions?
I have saved a list of some of these crossings from various different meetings. So I'll rehab that, bring that up, and that'll be part of our discussion as well. And we'll give them a heads up so they have some time to work on it.
Question for you through to Diane, to the chair, sorry. Can we add Second Line and Sackville Road on that? Because that's dangerous too.
Second line.
Oh, yes, that is one of the ones that have been identified. Absolutely, Derek.
Just keep that in mind, because I gave up on it because it's just not safe.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you, Derek.
All right, I think I'm gonna jump off, you guys. I'm not feeling too good, but it was here anyways. I think I'm gonna jump off this call just so that I can get a drink. Or is there anything pressing that maybe I should stay on for?
No, Derek, I think we're very close to adjourning. Sandra, did you have something that you wanted to add?
Just quickly, Sandra, can you send a reminder out? The deadline's October 30th or October 20th for us to get new ideas about what sidewalks should be plowed for those with disabilities. Just because I know some people are not here today. Thank you.
And any other comments? And on that note, I want to thank everybody for the participation today. We will make a point to thank Francois. That was great for him to come and go through all of that material with us. And if we could have a motion to adjourn, a mover and a seconder, we will see you all again on November the 8th. Do we have a mover, Sandra, and a seconder, Lisa? Thank you very much. Take care, everybody. Enjoy the nice fall day. And especially, I want to thank Tyler, Christy, and Annika for their assistance. Thanks, guys. We're gonna work on our microphone issue and we'll see you again. Really appreciate you coming. Get my, yes.